So it's episode 8, season 3 of Warrior. You know when you're losing the fight. I called it in the first episode that Lee Young and Pac were going to fight, and we finally got it. But we'll get to that. So a quick synopsis of the show before breaking down this brilliant episode. Mai Ling and Lee Young are married at the same time as Buckley is crowned mayor of San Francisco. After making his speech, Leary tries to get him to let the Irish boys free, but Strickland shuts that down right away, possibly causing tension between them. At the wedding ceremony, Lee Young is once again confronted by the council, and they urge him to restrain Mai Ling's more reckless side, threatening direct action against her. Also at the wedding are Special Agents Lee and Mosley. Whilst there, Lee recognises Yan Mi, and he also has a conversation with Chow, telling him to stay clear of Tong business. Atoy is confronted by the pimp from last week's episodes, leading to the first of 3 set pieces. He tells her he's getting his girls back regardless of Mai Ling's order, but that he owes her interest. Father John's fever, if that's what it is, because it seems to be progressing and getting worse, leads to 2 quality scenes. Father John even says, when you scrapped as much as I have, you know when you're losing the fight. Mai Ling executes Order 66 on the Longzhi Council, with only Kong Pak surviving, thus leading to his and Lee Young's fight. Meanwhile, Bill is in the boozer, and once again Leary is being berated by his own kin. And Bill, who isn't happy about his own things, eventually tells Leary to follow him to get the boys previously arrested out of jail. This rounding off our 3rd set piece. And I said previously Bill was going to get fed up of Police Chief Dickhead, but I didn't expect him to fight him. After this, we get Father Jun waking his son up with a knife to the throat. And he's having an episode once again. I think these are about the Opium Wars, because of what he's saying. And the episode ends with Lai being in Strickland's house. So once again, this was an awesome and very well written episode. So much happened, and we got 3 incredible set pieces. So in no particular order, let's start off with the wedding and Buckley's ceremony. I loved how they entwined these scenes together, especially when Buckley was giving his speech. Except for every vile word he said about the Chinese, they showed an aspect of the wedding. I love what they did and how it was acted, and all credit is due to the writers and actors. Last week I said it would be weird if Assam went on his own. But she did actually invite the Hot Boy as well. And at least Hong seemed happy being there. He was the only one smiling. And Assam was being very discreet and gave her a wink and a smile, as young Jun was practically scowling at him. I enjoyed the entire wedding scene and reception afterwards, be it the interaction between Lee Young and Pac, seeing Chow and Atoy together, to seeing Lee tell Mosley about the 2 tongues and how they'd usually just be dicing each other, which of course leads to suspicion regarding the counterfeiting, especially as Lee clocks Yan Mi from across the room. Lee and Chow also have an interaction, with Lee telling him he will bring him in if he has to. But can he really? Chow knows that Lee has killed people. Does this not give him leverage against him? I said it last week that I think Yan Mi will be killed by one party or the other. In this episode, young Jun tells Assam not to get attached. He specifically says, don't get attached. Whether this is confirmation or not, I don't know. Now at the wedding, there's a really sweet moment after Assam has just kissed Yan Mi, and he looks over to Atoy, who has seen them, and she gives this little nod. Now, be it approval or just a greeting, who knows? But to me, it felt like more. She is then promptly taken by the pimp from last week, and the storyline is wrapped up by her biting off part of his nose and dicing his two minions. She's using a blade-tip fan, and it's short, brutal and quick. She then kills him just before Assam runs in. Once again, the show gives us a fight with a toy. Last week she struggled, she was unarmed. This week she has a blade, and they don't fare half as good now. It once again shows us the strengths and weaknesses of the characters. I can't praise this show, the writers and the showrunners enough for showing current Hollywood how to do all the buzzwords correctly. And most of Hollywood's writers should take note of their example. During the night as the happy couple consummate their marriage, Mai Ling has done an Order 66 on the Long Z Council. Now, murder aside, she must have been plotting this for about the same amount of time as they've been plotting against her. And they're all dead bar one. That one, of course, being Kung Pak. Which brings us to the fight between the two friends. This is fantastic. Not just because I called it from episode 1, although it doesn't exactly happen how I thought it would, and I'm sure many other people called it as well. But Kung Pak bursts in, disturbing their breakfast, and tells Lee Young what happened, showing the rope marks around his neck. But it's done in a way that forces Lee Young to choose on the spot between his wife or the tongue. And these two old friends fight each other for what they think is right. Neither of them wants to fight the other, but they must. And Lee Young gains the upper hand, and he pleads with his friend to stop. But he can't. Pak says she won't stop, so neither can I. And Lee Young eventually is forced to kill his best friend. And just before he does it, he looks Mai Ling dead in the eyes, as if to say, look what I'm willing to do for you. After he kills him, Mai Ling the manipulator tries to justify her actions, trying to manipulate him more, as he's embracing his dead friend. Only in his friend's death does he see how much of a manipulator Mai Ling is. It's a truly emotional scene. I've said in previous reviews how good Joe Taslim's acting is, and he shines in this episode. Let's talk about Bill's big moment. After once again being in work for his brother-in-law, he's promoted this time to work in the accounts department. But as he is shown the ropes, it feels like the guy is belittling him, and it doesn't sit right with Bill. You see it in his face. Later on, we skip to him being in the pub, and Leary is once again getting a mouthful off one of his patrons, being the father from last week, about his sons being imprisoned. He labels Leary a fat cat, and now he's forgotten who he is. And afterwards, he sits down next to Bill and says he could really do with him being a police officer right now, to which Bill replies they wouldn't listen to him because of Police Chief Dickhead, saying that they wouldn't choose between him and the jobs which provide for the family. Eventually, Bill downs his drink and tells Leary to follow him. It seems as though it's trying to tell you that Bill is the one who's forgotten who he is. And I don't think, obviously, that Bill is in a good space right now. It felt like that even though the conversation he's overhearing isn't about him, he's seen similarities in it and makes it about him. Now, the scene is really well done, and I loved how in the police station, in the background was a ticking clock, as Bill tries to get them released. As it stops ticking, he says, I'm not asking you, I'm telling you. Bill has chosen his side. They release the two lads just as Police Chief Dickhead appears and challenges Bill to a bet. Beat him and the boys go free. Lose and both him and Leary get banged up. And just as Bill says he's not stupid enough to fight the police chief, he's punched in the mouth. This is also the first time we've seen Bill fight. He's had a few skirmishes before, but he's always been armed. Now, personally, I think Bill needed this fight. Like I said, the conversation he overheard was about Leary. but he's the one who felt it. Now, during the fight, at one point, he looks like he's on the ropes, but he bounces back beautifully. And I don't think I've ever seen someone headbutt another guy in the chest. Now, he eventually takes down Police Chief Dickhead and secures the release. And later on, he has to explain to his wife what happened, and this is a very cute scene. He explains what happened, and they're both drinking, her mainly out of shock. And he says, he will be arrested and that, the poop is going to hit the fan. But I've seen the promo for next week's episode, and Buckley seems to pull up to the house. So I reckon that Billy's going to get the police chief's job. Now, we have a couple of scenes between the Juns, and I don't think it's a favour young Jun has. He knows it too. In his lucid state, he does tell young Jun to beware of Assam. Young Jun says he wouldn't challenge him for the tongue, despite, messing up recently. To which Father Jun replies, "That's what I thought about you." It's putting yet another seed in young Jun's growing paranoia-filled brain. Later on, Father Jun wakes up young Jun with a knife to the throat. He's having another episode of whatever he's suffering from. And it's almost heartbreaking seeing this once strong man, a great warrior himself, become this weak, confused old man. It's even harder seeing young Jun's reaction, but it's helping to humanise the pair of them. As Sam warns Yan Mi that young Jun is spiralling and tells her that it's possibly time for if she starts looking for that exit plan. As he's telling her, the camera cuts behind Lee, who has seen the two together. Now I'm guessing he's going to offer her some kind of deal on whatever counts as witness protection back then. The episode ends with Lai being in Strickland's house. She's tired of waiting and she's desperate to dice somebody up. So that was episode 8. A very emotional yet action heavy episode, and it's building towards the big climax with Strickland. Assam hasn't fought in the last couple of episodes, so I guess it's building to that as well. Now in the trailer he looks like he fights one of Happy Jack's men. How that happens, if indeed it does, will be fun to see. I love talking about this show. It's been so much fun watching the episodes multiple times, and I've enjoyed it in the process, especially in the midst of the crap we've been given recently. This is an oasis of excellence, and the writers thoroughly deserve their wages. This is the standard that Hollywood could learn from. Only House of the Dragon writers come close. For those that made it this far, thank you very much. And I urge you to go check out the Salty Nerd podcast for their review of Warrior if you haven't already done so. That's all for now. Ta-ra.